Waiting for the Visa by Babasaheb Ambedkar. 1. Our family came originally from Dapoli Taluka of the Ratnagiri district of the Bombay Presidency. From the very commencement of the rule of the East India Company, my forefathers had left their hereditary occupation for service in the army of the company. My father also followed the family tradition and sought service in the army. He rose to the rank of an officer and was a Subedar when he retired. On his retirement, my father took the family to Dapoli with a view to settle down there. But for some reasons, my father changed his mind. The family left Dapoli for Satara, where we lived till 1904. The first incident which I am recording, as well as I can remember, occurred in about 1901 when we were at Satara. My mother was then dead. My father was away on service as a cashier at a place called Goregaon in Khatav Taluka in Satara district, where the government of Bombay had started the work of excavating a tank for giving employment to famine-stricken people who were dying by thousands. When my father went to Goregaon, he left me, my brother who was older than myself, and two sons of my eldest sister who was dead, in charge of my aunt and some kind neighbors. My aunt was the kindest soul I know, but she was of no help to us. She was somewhat of a dwarf and had some trouble with her legs, which made it very difficult for her to move about without the help of somebody. Oftentimes she had to be lifted. I had sisters. They were married and were living away from their families. Cooking our food became a problem with us, especially as our auntie could not, on account of her helplessness, manage the job. We 4 children went to school and we also cooked our food. We could not prepare bread, so we lived on pulao, which we found to be the easiest dish to prepare, requiring nothing more than mixing rice and mutton. Being a cashier, my father could not leave his station to come to Satara to see us. Therefore, he wrote to us to come to Goregaon and spend our summer vacation with him. We children were thoroughly excited over the prospect, especially as none of us had, up to that time, seen a railway train. Great preparations were made. New shirt of English make, bright beej-weld cap, new shoes, new silk-bordered dhotis were ordered for the journey. My father had given us all particulars regarding our journey and had told us to inform him on which day we would be starting, so that he could send his peon to the railway station to meet us and take us to Goregaon. According to this arrangement, myself, my brother, and one of my sister's son left Satara, our aunt remaining in charge of our neighbors who promised to look after her. The railway station was 10 miles distant from our place, and a tonga, or one-horse carriage, was engaged to take us to the station. We were dressed in the new clothing specially made for the occasion, and we left our home full of joy, but amidst the cries of my aunt, who was almost prostrate with grief at our parting. When we reached the station, my brother bought tickets and gave me and my sister's son 2 annas each as pocket money to be spent at our pleasure. We at once began our career of riotous living, and each ordered a bottle of lemonade at the start. After a short while, the train whistled and we boarded it as quickly as we could for fear of being left behind. We were told to detrain at Masur, the nearest railway station, for Goregaon. The train arrived at Masur at about 5 in the evening and we got down with our luggage. In a few minutes, all the passengers who had got down from the train had gone away to their destination. We 4 children remained on the platform looking out for my father or his servant whom he had promised to send. Long did we wait, but no one turned up. An hour elapsed and the station master came to inquire. He asked us for our tickets. We showed them to him. He asked us why we tarried. We told him that we were bound for Goregaon and that we were waiting for father or his servants to come, but neither had turned up, and that we did not know how to reach Goregaon. We were well-dressed children. From our dress or talk, no one could make out that we were children of the untouchables. Indeed, the station master was quite sure we were Brahmin children and was extremely touched at the plight in which he found us. As is usual among the Hindus, the station master asked us who we were. Without a moment's thought, I blurted out that we were Mahars. Mahar is one of the communities which are treated as untouchables in the Bombay Presidency. He was stunned. His face underwent a sudden change. We could see that he was overpowered by a strange feeling of repulsion. As soon as he heard my reply, he went away to his room and we stood where we were. 15 to 20 minutes elapsed. The sun was almost setting. The father had not turned up, nor had he sent his servant, and now the station master had also left us. We were quite bewildered, and the joy and happiness which we felt at the beginning of the journey gave way to the feeling of extreme sadness. After half an hour, the station master returned and asked us what we proposed to do. We said that if we could get a bullock cart on hire, we would go to Goregaon, and if it were not far away, we would like to start straight away. There were many bullock carts plying for hire, but my reply to the station master that we were Mahals had gone round among the cartmen, and not one of them was prepared to suffer being polluted and to demean himself carrying passengers of the untouchable classes. We were prepared to pay double the fare, but we found that money did not work. The station master, who was negotiating on our behalf, stood silent, not knowing what to do. Suddenly a thought seemed to have entered his head, and he asked us, "Can you drive the cart?" Feeling that he was finding out a solution of our difficulty, we shouted, "Yes, we can." With that answer, he went and proposed on our behalf that we were to pay the cartman double the fare and drive the cart, and that he should walk on the foot along with the cart for our journey. One cartman agreed, as he gave him an opportunity to earn his fare and also saved him from being polluted. It was about 6:30 p.m. when we were ready to start, but we were anxious not to leave the station until we were assured that we would reach Goregaon before it was dark. We therefore questioned the cartman as to the distance and the time he would take to reach Goregaon. He assured us that it would take not more than 3 hours. Believing in his word, we put our luggage in the cart, thanked the station master, and got into the cart. One of us took the reins, and the cart started with the man walking by our side. Not very far from the station there flowed a river. It was quite dry except at places where there were small pools of water. The owner of the cart proposed that we should halt there and have our meal, as we might not get water on our way. We agreed. He asked us to give a part of his fare to enable him to go to the village and give his meal. My brother gave him some money, and he left, promising to return soon. We were very hungry and were glad to have an opportunity to have a bite. My auntie had pressed our neighbors' women folk into service and had got some nice preparation for us to take on our way. We opened tiffin basket and started eating. We needed water to wash things down. One of us went to the pool of water in the river basin nearby, but the water really was no water. It was thick with mud and urine and excreta of the cows and buffaloes and other cattle who went to the pool for drinking. In fact, that water was not intended for human use. At any rate, the stink of the water was so strong we could not drink it. We had therefore to close our meal before we were satisfied and wait for the arrival of the cartman. He did not come for a long time, and all that we could do was to look to him in all directions. Ultimately, he came, and we started on our journey. For some 4 or 5 miles we drove the cart, and he walked on foot. Then he suddenly jumped into the cart and took the reins from our hand. We thought this to be a rather strange conduct on the part of the man who had refused to let the cart on hire for fear of pollution, to have set aside all his religious scruples, and to have consented with us to sit in the same cart, but we dared not ask him any questions on this point. We were anxious to reach Goregaon, our destination, as quickly as possible, and for some time we were interested in the movement of the cart only, but soon there was darkness all around us. There were no street lights to relieve the darkness. There were no men or women or even cattle passing by to make us feel that we were in their midst. We became fearful of the loneliness which surrounded us. Our anxiety was growing. We mustered all the courage we possessed. We had travelled far from Mysore. It was more than 3 hours, but there was no sign of Goregaon. There arose a strange thought within us. We suspected that the cartman intended treachery, and that he was taking us to some lonely spot to kill us. We had a lot of gold ornaments on us, and that helped strengthen our suspicion. We started asking him how far Goregaon is, why we were so late in reaching it. He kept on saying, "It is not very far. We shall soon reach it." It was about 10 at night when, finding that there was no trace of Goregaon, we children started crying and abusing the cartman. Our lamentations and wailings continued for long. The cartman made no reply. Suddenly we saw a light burning at some distance. The cartman said, "Do you see that light? That is the light of the toll collector. We will rest there for the night." We felt some relief and stopped crying. The light was distant, but we could never seem to reach it. It took us 2 hours to reach the toll collector's hut. The interval increased our anxiety, and we kept on asking the cartman all sorts of questions as to why there was a delay in reaching the place, whether we were going on the same road, etc. Ultimately, by midnight, the cart reached the toll collector's hut. It was situated at the foot of a hill, but on the other side of the hill. When we arrived, we saw a large number of bullock carts there, all resting for the night. We were extremely hungry and wanted very much to eat. But again, there was the question of water. So we asked our driver whether it was possible to get water. He warned us that the toll collector was a Hindu and there was no possibility of us getting water if we spoke the truth and said that we were Mahars. He said, "Say you are Mohammedans and try your luck." On his advice, I went to the toll collector's hut and asked him if he would give us water. "Who are you?" he inquired. I replied that we were Mussalmans. I conversed with him in Urdu, which I knew very well, so as to leave no doubt that I was a real Mussalman. But the trick did not work, as his reply was very curt. "Who has kept water for you? There is water on the hill. If you want to go and get it, I have none." With this he dismissed me. I returned to the cart and conveyed to my brother his reply. I don't know what my brother felt. All that he did was to tell us to lie down. The bullocks had been unyoked and the cart was placed sloping down on the ground. We spread our beds and the bottom planks inside the cart and laid down our bodies to rest. Now that we had come to a place of safety, we did not mind what happened, but our minds could not help turning to the latest event. There was plenty of food with us. There was hunger burning within us. With all this, we were to sleep without food. That was because we could get no water, and we could get no water because we were untouchables. Such was the last thought that entered our mind. I said we had come to a place of safety. Evidently, my elder brother had his misgivings. He said it was not wise for all 4 of us to go to sleep. Anything might happen. He suggested that one time 2 should sleep and 2 should keep watch. So we spent the night at the foot of that hill. Early at 5 in the morning, our cartman came and suggested that we should start for Goregaon. We flatly refused. We told him that we would not move until 8 o'clock. We did not want to take any chance. He said nothing. So we left at 8 and reached Goregaon at 11. My father was surprised to see us and said that he had received no intimation of our coming. We protested that we had given intimation. He denied the fact. Subsequently, it was discovered that the fault was of my father's servant. He had received our letter but failed to give it to my father. This incident has a very important place in my life. I was a boy of 9 when it happened, but it has left an indelible impression on my mind. Before this incident occurred, I knew that I was an untouchable, and that untouchables were subject to certain indignities and discriminations. For instance, I knew that in my school I could not sit in the midst of my class students according to my rank, but that I was to sit in a corner by myself. I knew that in the school I was to have a separate piece of gunny cloth for me to squat on in the classroom, and the servant employed to clean the school would not touch the gunny cloth used by me. I was required to carry the gunny cloth home in the evening and bring it back to class the next day. While in the school, I knew that children of the touchable classes, when they felt thirsty, could go out to the water tap, open it, and quench their thirst. All that was necessary was the permission of the teacher, but my position was separate. I could not touch the tap, and unless it was opened by a touchable person, it was not possible for me to quench my thirst. In my case, the permission of the teacher was not enough. The presence of the school peon was necessary, for he was the only person whom the class teacher could use for such a purpose. If the peon was not available, I had to go without water. The situation can be summed up in the statement, no peon, no water. At home, I knew that the work of washing clothes was done by my sisters. Not that there were no washermen in Satara, not that we could not afford to pay the washermen. Washing was done by my sisters because we were untouchables, and no washerman could wash the clothes of an untouchable. The work of cutting the hair or shaving the boys, including myself, was done by our elder sister, who had become quite an expert barber by practicing the art on us. Not that there were no barbers in Satara, not that we could not afford to pay the barber. The work of shaving and hair cutting was done by my sister because we were untouchable, and no barber would consent to shave an untouchable. All this I knew, but this incident gave me a shock such as I never received before, and it made me think about untouchability, which, before this incident happened, was with me a matter, of course, as it may with many touchables as well as the untouchables. The end.